besito? ¿Otro besito, Ana?
Ana, besito a Oli. Besito a Oli, corre. Besito.
¿Otro?
This story is not just heartbreaking, it is haunting. What you're about to hear involves a father who transformed from a loving parent into a cold, calculated killer. His victims, his own daughters, 6-year-old Olivia and 1-year-old Anna, two bright, laughing little girls who trusted him completely until the final moment. On the night of April 27th, 2021, their mother, Beatrice Zimmerman, waved goodbye as the girls were picked up for a routine visit with their father. Just a few hours later, she received a phone call that would tear her world apart. "You will never see the girls or me again." That was the last thing she ever heard from him. No one knew yet what had happened. No one could imagine the horror that had just unfolded behind closed doors. But in the days that followed, the calm waters surrounding the Spanish island of Tenerife would begin to give up their terrible secrets. Today, I'll tell you the devastating story of Anna and Olivia Zimmerman, a case that shocked Spain, shook the world, and changed child protection laws forever. This is not an easy story, but it is a necessary one, because sometimes the greatest danger to a child comes from the very person meant to protect them. Let's begin by meeting the girls who were taken far too soon. Olivia Zimmerman was born on October 15th, 2014, in the scenic Spanish island of Tenerife. From the moment she arrived, she became the heart of her family. Curious, brilliant, and always eager to learn, Olivia spoke both German and Spanish fluently by the time she was just 3 years old. She loved books, could read before most children her age, and spent hours drawing intricate pictures filled with flowers, animals, and smiling suns. She was the kind of child who walked into a room and instantly filled it with laughter. Her joy was infectious, pure and bright. Her favorite thing in the world? Reading stories to her little sister and dipping her toes into the sea just before sunset. And then came Anna. Born on April 10th, 2019, Anna was the softest, smallest spark of light. A baby with big brown eyes and chubby cheeks, she was everything sweet and gentle. She adored Olivia, always reaching for her, always giggling when her sister sang to her in 2 languages. Olivia, for her part, took on the role of big sister with an instinctive tenderness. She fed Anna, played with her, and even made up silly bedtime songs that only the 2 of them understood. They were inseparable. Neighbors would often see them hand in hand, walking along the coast with their mother, Olivia skipping stones while Anna toddled beside her, pointing at birds and laughing in delight. Their bond was unbreakable, innocent, untouched by the world's darkness. To the outside world, they were just 2 little girls in a beautiful place, living a simple, happy childhood. But no one, not even their mother, could foresee that their laughter would soon be silenced, and their names etched forever into a nation's heart. They were not just victims of a tragedy. They were sisters, best friends, and 2 tiny sons whose light was stolen much too soon. Next, we'll look at the world they came from, and the cracks that began to form inside their once whole family. At first glance, the Zimmerman Gimeno family looked like a postcard. Beatrice Zimmerman, originally from Germany, had fallen in love with Tomás Gimeno, a native of Tenerife, when they were teenagers. For a time, their life together appeared idyllic. Sunlit walks by the sea, 2 beautiful daughters, and the gentle rhythm of a coastal town surrounding them. Beatrice devoted herself fully to her daughters. She was nurturing, attentive, and fiercely protective. Tomas, a man who worked at sea, was often away but seemed to adore his children when he was home. To outsiders, they were the perfect young family, but beneath that calm surface, tension had been growing. By early 2020, after Anna's first birthday, the cracks began to show. Tomas became increasingly controlling, withdrawn, irritable, and prone to unpredictable moods. He no longer spoke with warmth. Instead, he grew resentful, especially toward Beatrice. Their relationship unraveled quickly. What triggered the final break was something painfully ordinary. Beatrice met someone new. In early 2021, she began a relationship with another man, one built on trust and mutual respect, something she had long stopped experiencing with Tomas. For Tomas, it was more than heartbreak. It was humiliation. He couldn't accept that Beatrice had moved on. Friends would later recall chilling remarks he made. "She will regret this. She can't be happy without me." He began to obsess over the idea that the girl should be with him, exclusively. He became demanding during visitations, sometimes cryptic in his comments. Beatrice grew uneasy, but there was no solid evidence that something terrible was coming. The warning signs were there, subtle, but undeniable. During conversations with acquaintances, Tomas increasingly spoke of finality. He said things like, "I'll make sure she suffers," and "If I can't have them, no one can." But these were dismissed as the bitter ramblings of a broken man. No one imagined what they truly meant. The courts allowed visitation. The system assumed that a father, even in pain, could never become a threat to his own children. There were no prior criminal records, no physical violence, just words. And so, the schedule remained in place. Every Tuesday, Tomas would spend a few hours with Olivia and Anna, then bring them home by evening. April 27th, 2021 was just another Tuesday, until it wasn't. That morning, Beatrice shared breakfast with her daughters. Olivia played with Anna in the living room, her laughter filling the house. Tomas was due to pick them up around 5 p.m., just like he always did. There was no reason to suspect it would be the last time Beatrice ever saw her daughters alive, because the monster wasn't some stranger hiding in the dark. It was someone they knew, someone they loved, someone who had been standing beside them the entire time. Next, we'll follow the events of that unthinkable day and the horror that unfolded when the sun went down. April 27th, 2021 began like any other sunny Tuesday in Tenerife. Beatrice had breakfast with her daughters in their modest home. Olivia was coloring at the table, humming a song under her breath, while Anna toddled around, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. There was nothing unusual, nothing ominous, just another ordinary day. At 5 p.m., Tomas arrived for his scheduled visit. The girls, unaware of any tension between their parents, greeted their father with excitement. Witnesses saw them climb into his car. Anna strapped into her child's seat, Olivia beside her, smiling and waving goodbye to their mother. Beatrice stood at the doorway, watching her daughters disappear down the street, never suspecting it would be the last time. Tomas was expected to bring them back by evening. That was the agreement. But instead of taking the girls out for dinner or a walk, he drove them to his home in the nearby town of Igueste de Candelaria. It was here that the horror began. At approximately 7 p.m., Tomas gave the girls muscle relaxants, sedatives designed to make them drowsy. They were children, trusting, vulnerable, and completely unaware. The drugs made them fall asleep quickly, without struggle. Then, in the quiet of his home, with no one around to stop him, Tomas murdered his daughters. First Anna, then Olivia. According to forensic experts, the girls never woke up. They never cried. They didn't suffer. But the calmness of their passing only deepened the cold calculation of the act. Tomas had prepared everything. In advance, he had packed 2 sports bags. He had acquired ropes and an anchor. This was not a crime of passion. It was a meticulously planned execution. Around 9:30 p.m., he loaded the bags containing the girls' bodies into his car. A short drive later, he arrived at the marina of Santa Cruz de Tenerife. Port workers later recalled seeing him hauling heavy bags onto his boat. His movements were quiet, steady, like a man fulfilling the final step of a plan he had long committed to. At 10 p.m., Tomas made a chilling phone call to Beatriz. "You will never see the girls or me again," he said. Beatriz froze. At first, she thought it was a cruel attempt at emotional blackmail, another jealous outburst. But there was something different about his tone, flat, cold, final. She called and called, but there was no answer, and when the hours passed with no sign of her daughters, panic set in. By 11 p.m., Beatriz contacted the local police. Initially, they treated it as a family dispute, a delayed return, a father pushing boundaries. But when they learned of the phone call and realized Tomas was no longer reachable, they raised the alarm. Meanwhile, out at sea, Tomas disappeared into the night. Security cameras at the port recorded his vessel heading toward the open ocean. Investigators later concluded that he had dropped the sports bags, tied to anchors, into the deep waters, more than 1,000 meters below the surface. No one ever saw him again. The following day, April 28th, his boat was found drifting near the coast of Puerto de Guimar. Inside, authorities discovered blood traces, a baby's car seat, and personal items. But there was no sign of Tomas, no sign of Anna, no sign of Olivia. The sea had swallowed everything. For days, Beatriz clung to hope. Maybe it was a staged disappearance. Maybe they were alive somewhere. Maybe. Then, on April 29th, hope began to fade. Anna's empty car seat was found floating in the ocean. It was a symbol of finality. A child's seat, detached from its tiny occupant, drifting alone in the cold Atlantic. But Beatriz refused to give up. For 45 days she fought, demanding a full-scale search of the seabed, pleading with authorities, speaking to the press, and begging the world not to forget her daughters. The horror of what Tomas had done was no longer just a family tragedy. It was becoming a national nightmare, and soon the sea would return one of its secrets. From the moment Tomas's boat was found adrift, the Spanish civil guard knew they weren't dealing with a simple custody case. The discovery of blood, along with the child's seat and his personal belongings, painted a chilling picture. Yet still, there were no bodies, no official confirmation, no closure. Beatriz refused to sit still, driven by the instincts of a mother and the weight of unspeakable loss. She demanded action. She gave interviews, held press conferences, wrote to public officials. Her daughters were not going to vanish in silence. If the sea had taken them, then the sea would have to give them back. Within days, Spain launched one of the most complex oceanic searches in its history. The government deployed the Ángeles Alvarinho, a state-of-the-art oceanographic vessel equipped with sonar and deep-sea drones capable of scanning depths up to 1,000 meters. For 45 days, the ship combed the dark, icy floor of the Atlantic, navigating shifting currents and underwater ravines. The entire nation watched. Updates dominated the news. Candlelight vigils were held. Murals of Anna and Olivia appeared across Spain. Beatriz was there, every day, at the port, eyes locked on the horizon, refusing to accept what she feared most. And then, on June 10th, 2021, the ocean finally spoke. At a depth of 1,000 meters, 3 nautical miles off the coast of Tenerife, the vessel's robotic arm retrieved a heavy sports bag. Inside was the lifeless body of 6-year-old Olivia, preserved by the cold darkness of the deep. She had been bound and anchored. Her death was not accidental. It was deliberate. Nearby, divers found a second bag, this one torn and empty. It's believed that Anna's tiny body was once inside, but currents had long since carried it away. No trace of Tomas Gimeno was ever found. Presumed drowned or otherwise disappeared, he left no confession, no letter, no explanation. Only the single sentence he uttered to Beatriz on the phone. "You will never see the girls or me again." But the forensic evidence was damning. An official judge's report confirmed the timeline of events and declared without hesitation that Tomas had murdered his daughters with full premeditation and with one purpose only, to inflict the maximum possible pain on their mother. It was a textbook case of vicarious violence, a term used to describe when children are used as instruments of revenge in domestic conflict. The court never had a trial. There was no defendant left to punish, but justice, in its own way, found a voice through investigation. The case was formally closed in August 2021 after exhausting all efforts to recover Anna or Tomas. The cost of the operation had exceeded €1 million, but no one questioned it because a child's life is priceless. Beatriz did not stop there. She petitioned to have Tomas's surname legally removed from her daughter's death certificates. She refused to let the name of their killer remain tied to their memory, and the court agreed. Anna and Olivia would not be remembered as victims of a man. They would be remembered simply as Anna and Olivia, 2 sisters who should still be here. The search for justice had ended, but the fight for change was just beginning. The death of Anna and Olivia Zimmerman shattered more than just one family. It broke through the boundaries of private grief and spilled into the public heart of Spain, waking an entire country to the silent epidemic of domestic violence and the hidden danger children can face even in the arms of their parents. News of the discovery spread like wildfire. Within hours of the announcement that Olivia's body had been recovered, spontaneous vigils began forming across cities. Crowds gathered in plazas, lighting candles, holding photos of the girls, many with the same message scrawled on cardboard. No más violencia vicaria. No more vicarious violence. People wept openly, mothers holding their children a little tighter, fathers standing in stunned silence, unable to comprehend how a parent could cross such a line. Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, publicly expressed his condolences and called the crime a horror beyond understanding. Queen Letizia of Spain issued a rare personal statement condemning the act and praising Beatriz for her strength. But words were not enough. The people demanded change. Thousands took to the streets, not just to mourn, but to protest. Demonstrations erupted in Madrid, Barcelona, Seville, Valencia, and beyond. The slogans were unified: protect our children. Listen to warning signs. No child should be used as a weapon. This was not just a crime, it was a reckoning. For decades, domestic violence laws in Spain had focused primarily on adult victims. The Zimmerman case exposed a dangerous gap: the assumption that a parent, especially a father, could not be a threat to their own child simply because of blood ties. Beatriz, even in her grief, became a voice of change. She spoke to the media, not just as a mother, but as an advocate. She described how Tomas had shown signs of control and manipulation long before the tragedy, how the system had failed to take his threats seriously, how custody arrangements continued despite clear red flags. In her words, "He didn't want custody, he wanted to hurt me, and he used our daughters to do it." From that pain emerged policy. Lawmakers accelerated reforms around child protection and custody cases. The concept of vicarious violence gained legal recognition. Threats made by a parent, especially those targeting children, would now be grounds for immediate legal intervention. But beyond the courtroom and the parliament halls, it was the people who carried Anna and Olivia's legacy forward. On October 18, 2022, in Santa Cruz de Tenerife, a bronze sculpture was unveiled at the Parque Infantil de la Gesta del 25 de Julio. Created by artist Julio Nieto, the piece features two young girls holding hands, gazing up at the sky, their faces serene, as if at peace. Beatriz stood at the ceremony, holding her newborn daughter, Elsa, born exactly 1 year after Anna's birthday. She didn't try to replace what she had lost. No one could. But Elsa became, in her words, a promise of life, born under the wings of two angels. The sculpture became a national symbol. Tourists and locals alike visit the site, not as a grim reminder of death, but as a quiet space for reflection, a place to say, never again. And celebrities joined in. Antonio Banderas, Penelope Cruz, Alejandro Sanz, and others used their platforms to share the girl's story. International news outlets covered the case extensively. Even outside Spain, the names Anna and Olivia became synonymous with the tragic cost of ignoring emotional abuse and manipulation in domestic relationships. Their story resonated everywhere because it could happen anywhere. The fight to protect children from being used as tools of control, revenge, or punishment was no longer a private battle. It became a shared mission. Anna and Olivia did not live long lives, but their memory sparked a movement. If someone you knew said, "You'll never see your children again," would you take it seriously? If someone joked about taking the kids forever, would you laugh it off? Would you wait for something more obvious? Or would you listen to that feeling deep inside, warning you that something wasn't right? Beatriz Zimmerman did everything she could. She loved her daughters fiercely. She protected them, nurtured them, and believed in the law to help her do the rest. But the system failed. It failed to hear the warning signs. It failed to act when control turned to threats. And by the time it opened its eyes, it was too late. Anna and Olivia Zimmerman were not just two little girls from a small island in Spain. They became symbols of innocence lost, of love betrayed, and of the quiet ways evil can hide in plain sight. They should have been running through the park today. They should have been holding their baby sister's hand. They should have grown up, but they didn't. And yet, their story changed the world. It made governments move. It made families talk. It made all of us stop and look closer at the faces we thought we knew. Today, a sculpture of two girls stands quietly by the sea. But their real memorial isn't made of bronze. It lives in the hearts of millions who carry their story forward. So if you've been moved by Anna and Olivia, don't let this just be another video. Share their story. Speak up when something feels wrong. Protect the children around you, not just with love, but with vigilance. Because sometimes monsters don't hide in shadows. They sit at the dinner table. They smile at school pickup. They hold tiny hands on Tuesday afternoons. And unless we choose to see them, really see them, we might not realize the danger until it's far, far too late. Anna and Olivia, two angels who never got to grow up, but who changed the world with the lives they never got to finish. May their names never be forgotten.